Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have John Foong on the line, and he's Chief Revenue Officer over at Domain. John, welcome to the show.
Adam, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh man, great to have you, and from the other side of the world coming in today, and talking about Domain and really the platform and how it's helping its clients. So definitely a pleasure to have you here today. And just to start off this episode, John, we're going to start this episode off the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So, John, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. John, what mission matters to you?
Well, Adam, I get the great privilege of being one of the leaders at Domain, which is a leading property marketplace in Australia. And good day for all of you listening who aren't in Australia today. My company's mission is to inspire confidence in life's property decisions. Property is a very momentous, it's a very, very special thing. In Australia, we call the house you live in your castle. Whether you're renting, whether you're buying, whether you're landlording, whether you're investing, it's a very personal thing. It means a lot financially, emotionally. And we want to inspire confidence in a process which can be really, really scary. And that's what we do here. And that really suits a lot of my own mission. I'll tell more about my real estate story as we go. But for me, a lot of my life has been helping lead people through difficult and challenging times. And I'm very, very grateful for doing that as part of the real estate industry right now.
And so, and thank you for sharing that, John. And so, are you from Australia originally? Or I see a lot of Stanford, I see a lot of U.S. experience here, a lot of other places. Are you from Australia originally, or how'd you end up out there?
Yeah, I'm from Australia. My mum's from Hong Kong. My dad's from Malaysia. They migrated to Australia in the 70s, and I was born here and spent the good part of my first half of my life here. Went to school here, sun, beach, sports, very much the Australian way, and did my first degree here in commerce and in information systems. So this is kind of where I had my first education and my first jobs. I started off as a consultant here working at McKinsey. But then for the next 17 years, I was all over the world. I worked in Africa in 2005 and in 2006, working for the U.S. government as an agricultural consultant specializing in poultry. Then was lucky enough to go to Stanford to do an MBA and a master's education in Silicon Valley near San Francisco. And then actually at the same time, Australia just qualified for the Soccer World Cup in Germany in 2006. So I was trying to be over to Europe for that. My sister was living in London at the time. So managed to get an internship at a small company then called Google, which had a few hundred employees in Europe at that time. End up staying at Google for 13 years. Started off in London, spent the next 6.5 years in Ireland, in Dublin, Ireland, which was an amazing experience. Became an Irish citizen there. Then moved back to the US to be with headquarters at Google. Met my wife here, had some kids here. Spent the next 6.5 years at Google in Silicon Valley, in headquarters, and then a few years at Uber afterwards, which is also in San Francisco. And then we moved back to Australia about a year ago after we'd had 2 girls and looking to be a bit closer to the family. So that's where we are.
Yeah, as I was researching you on LinkedIn and doing my pre-interview prep, I was trying to nail this down. I'm like, I can't tell where John's from. He's been all over the world.
It's been fun.
So a lot of experience, of course, obviously. How did real estate play? Like, how did real estate kind of peek its way into your career or become your direction? Because I see you've had quite a bit of real estate experience as well.
Yeah, up until a year ago, I had never formally worked in real estate my whole life. I've been an investor, which I'll talk about. Now, my dad, he worked for a bank for all of his life, but his last job was as a real estate agent. He spent quite a few years being a real estate agent actually in the North Shore of Sydney, which is where I grew up and where I now live. And my real estate story really begins when I'm about 16 or 17. I'm about to finish high school and go to college, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to college. And my granny, who I was very, very close to at the time, sat me down and said, "Hey, John, you're about to get your first paycheck. You are going to buy a house." I said, "Well, why want to buy a house? There's many other things I could do as a teenager now with a few $1,000s in the bank. And she said, look, property is how you build wealth. And she bought me this book. I still remember it, The 7 Successful Tips to Property Investing. And she got me on that ladder. And she said, yeah, look, you only need a few $100s a month to put down for a deposit. We found an apartment which cost about $60,000, which is worth almost $1 million, I think. In Sydney, near where the universities are. She said, let's put the money down here. You pay into it. You still got your money to spend, but you are going to invest. And what she taught me was, I guess, a few lessons, right? The power of compound interest, as you invest in annuity over time, but also the power of property and how you can leverage capital to make really significant returns over time. And what happened was I got into that. I was at the age of 18 at the stage. Got into one, and of course, as you invest in property, if you're lucky enough that the property goes up over time, and typically it does, on average it'll go up 5 to 7%. When you look over the course of 10 years, it'll go up 5 to 7% per year. What happens is as you pay down that property, you can then buy more properties by exercise that leverage, by using the compounding interest, by using the capital gains, by using gearing. And so I was able to keep that property and then buy another property, this time not an apartment but a house. And then as I finished college and got into my full-time career, was earning a lot more money as a consultant, we were able to buy a lot more properties as we go. And so over the course of the next 10 years, between myself, my dad, and my granny, with their help, I found myself purchasing properties in almost every state and territory in Australia, and just learning about real estate in that way. So that's been kind of really the family business. Apart from my dad working in real estate for a few years, as an agent towards the end of his career, I had never worked, none of us ever worked in property until when I was coming back to Australia about a year ago. I was looking to work at a tech company, and Domain is what we call a property technology company, a prop tech company. So it's doing the work of property, of helping people, find, buy, and sell houses. But it's doing it through technology, through a beautiful app, through a really great website. And this was a really good match for my skill sets, the kind of skills that I've learned in running marketplaces at Google and running marketplaces at Uber, what they were looking for in a chief revenue officer. So it was very, very interesting to come back full circle and find that this was the right company for me in Australia, despite not actively looking in property at that time.
Wow. And so a lot of, obviously with your background, the companies you work for, your experience and knowledge, lot of companies, a lot of tech companies that I'm sure you could have settled on. So going with Domain, what are some of the things that maybe stuck out to you that you were like, okay, this is for me, like, yeah, this is where I need to be?
I love working at Domain. I know many of your listeners are not in Australia, but Domain is very much part of the ethos in places like Sydney and Melbourne, the biggest cities of Australia. It started off as part of the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, which are our big newspapers. And every weekend on the Saturday morning, I was like, I'm 7 or 8 at the time, and would go up to the newsagent, buy the newspaper, would come back. I would go in a reach for the Domain list out. This beautiful, like 64-page glossy list out with properties, with kind of like interesting articles. And we grew up with that. And that was how I felt like an adult, was look at that paper. And my dad, there was no real estate portals at the time. I remember going for walks with him at the neighborhood. And in Australia, real estate is a big deal. It's kind of Australia's favorite pastime. In America, it's interesting. The real estate offices, are kind of tucked away in some building somewhere. In Australia, the prime real estate belongs to real estate agents. When you're near the train station, when you're on the highways, you'll see all these real estate agents because we love real estate here. And I remember walking with my dad, just going for his evening walk, and he would always stop at each of those and look at the listings and things like that. And on the weekend, he'd open up the Sydney Morning Herald and take out the Domain magazine and look at those things. And so it's such a big part of the way of life in Australia. And Domain, the brand, is a huge part, particularly for the folks in Sydney and Melbourne who grew up with that newspaper. And so when I heard about the company and the fact they were looking for a chief revenue officer, for me, it needed no introduction. It's one of Australia's most well-known brands. But I think for me, what I did not understand is how technology-centric they are. They're trying to be a product company, like a Google, like an Uber. They want to use technology to scale to help people find what they need, whether they're buying a house, selling a house, renting a house, as quickly as possible with as much precision as possible. And that so happens to be the environment that I'm from. If you think about what the missions of Google and Uber are, it's about finding the world's information, making it accessible and useful. It's about helping people find a car as quickly as possible, particularly in the pouring rain or a special event. And that's very much what Domain is trying to do, find the right house at the right time for the right person at the right price. And my experience of the last 15 years has been to commercialize that, to figure out how the company can make money at a reasonable price, and so that economic engine takes care of itself. So it was just a perfect fit in terms of industry, where the company's at, my skill set, and my interest.
So as we go into, for everybody listening to this, we're recording this, towards the tail end of January 2023. So as we're, we can just say, 2023 just started, tail end of the pandemic, a lot of different things happening in the last couple of years, markets, economy, otherwise. I'm just curious, from your vantage point, I guess specifically as it relates to domain and real estate in general, like what excites you, or what do you find interesting going into 2023?
Domain is ultimately about real estate agents and helping them be more successful. Part of that's my own bias, and from the career of my dad and how challenging it can be to real estate agents to find the next listing to sell. To help in this case, usually it's someone trying to sell their home, help them through a very emotional process. And so when I think about the challenges people have, real estate agents are facing a difficult market where, because of high inflation, interest rates are high, and that typically, affects house prices. It puts some pressure on them, and it typically means that less people are looking to sell their house. And so when you're in that environment, you have a real opportunity as a company like Domain to make a difference, to help make it less stressful for both the real estate agent and the person looking to buy or sell their house. And so I'm really excited that the products that we offer at Domain are really, really going to be helpful this year. We also want to make it really easy for people to find a house and really easy for people to sell a house. And we do that by having a very easy-to-use app and try and make sure that all the properties and the areas that people are looking are on that app, so people know that if they want to find something, it's there, and if they want to sell something, that the people who are looking are all there. I'm excited that it's in these markets where we tend to make the biggest difference. And we also have a whole of other products that we offer for agents. We have a product called Real-Time Agent, which is like a DocuSign for real estate agents. You imagine how much paper is involved in a typical real estate transaction for those of you who have been fortunate to buy or sell a house. We have a lot of products like that which try and take the stress and the paper and the sheer workload, out of making a transaction. And so again, as real estate agents, the most valuable commodity they have is time. They're trying to save their time and become more digital. We have a lot of differences that we can make there. And it's during a difficult time in the market, where people are more open to trying new products, to saving time, to figure out how they can get the next listing. Or, as Warren Buffett says, it's when the tide goes out and you see who's not wearing swimmers. It's during difficult recession times. It's during difficult times in the property market that people ask, hey, how can I be more efficient? And we believe that Domain is a lot of the answer, with a lot of great things to share with people.
That's awesome. That's great to hear, and I agree with you that as we go into this next year, and I know you're on the side of linking agents along with the the people that are ultimately looking for these properties, or the buyers. So I feel like just the entire ecosystem and the approach that Domain's taking and that your team's taking, I mean, it's definitely inspiring. It's needed. The better the product is, the better obviously it's in, like you said, taking some of the stress off of the real estate agents and the individuals out there that are searching as well for the properties. So I think it's just a good win-win all around. John, just have to say it has been, appreciate you making time to come on the show today, again from Australia, and also it's been great to learn more about your background, your work, obviously what led you back home to Australia, and also Domain. I mean, of course, all the great work that you're doing over there for a big brand. That being said, if somebody's listening to this, John, and they want to either learn more about Domain, of course, or to follow your journey in general, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure, thanks, Ed. And before I go, I did want to say it's been inspiring to follow and hear about your podcast and look at the many different missions that people have and how you really amplify their voices and their missions. So grateful to be a part of that today. In terms of finding out more about me, LinkedIn is probably the best way. I don't have a website or anything myself. My name is John, J-O-H-N, and Foong, F-O-O-N-G. Happy to connect or follow or things of that nature, but would love to stay in touch.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what Domain has is we have a whole lot of research. We have a website, domain, domain.com.au. We have a really highly rated app. And then if you go to domain.com.au/research, we publish typically every week something about the rental market, the sales market, different regional markets, etc. So again, this is more directed to folks in Australia. And if you're in Australia, you've almost certainly already heard of us. But to the extent to which you're in the property market or thinking about it, there's a lot of really interesting ways to educate yourself. A lot of our mission is to inspire confidence by helping people become local property experts. And so we spend a lot of money on research on economics, and we want to share that really broadly with folks.
Oh, it's awesome, and I've had a chance to take a look at the site, and especially the research site. I mean, just phenomenal. I mean, great research, a lot of resources, a lot of tools on there. The regular site has calculators. I mean, it's exactly what I would have expected. So great work over there. And speaking of the audience, we'll put all the links to all this in the show notes so that you can just click on the links and check out Domain, also the research page, and then of course John on LinkedIn as well. And it says, speaking to the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters or engaging in an episode or listening to anything on the platform, we're all about bringing on business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, and experts and having them share their mission, the reason behind their mission, really what makes them tick and what gets them fired up to go out there into the marketplace and to make a difference. If that's the type of content that sounds interesting or engaging to you, then we invite you, hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up on the line, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And John, again, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate you making some time for us over here in California.
It was a pleasure, Adam. Good day, and see you soon.